and handle different circumstances. Now, it doesn't do a bit of good to write your list down and read your list. It doesn't do a bit of good to say to your vehicle, off from the list. No, I'll take that back. It does a little tiny bit of good to read your list and make your list. But to really do something effective would be to have foresight and not hindsight. In other words, when a circumstance comes up that you have written on your little list, we want you to be aware of it and handle it ahead of time and not afterwards. In other words, let's use an example that suppose an individual was given instructions not to make suggestions. And then this individual makes a suggestion. And then the person that he or she is talking to, whom he made a suggestion to, says to that individual, I thought you weren't supposed to make suggestions. Now, if that person who said that to this individual was coming across in the right way and wasn't trying to put this other individual down or find fault with him, and he said it very nicely and with the feeling that I really hate to say this to you, but I'm only doing it because I want to help you. Then the person who they said that to, his response should be, thank you for reminding me of that. I'm going to try and not do that again. Instead of getting mad and stomping away and feeling bad about it. Now, that is having foresight.
That is believing only that the person who gave that suggestion gave it with restraint and really didn't want to give it. Really, I mean, when I say didn't want to give it, doesn't like to give it.
You don't want to write it saying, boy, caught you with that, you know.
Or turn up your nose and say, I thought you weren't supposed to be doing that. You know,
in other words, you want to catch yourself. If you are irritable, let's say if you have irritability on your list, then you want to be aware that any time that little feeling of irritation starts to come in, that you catch it. And no matter what anyone is saying to you, if it's under other conditions before you started this task of controlling things beforehand, even though you've been supposed to be doing it all along, but we're putting more force in this direction, then you don't want to let that person who is coming across in that way affect you. In other words, it's almost like I'm going to be so stubborn, I'm not going to let a single person that cause me to be irritable. That's how stubborn you're going to become. In other words, you just become a Pollyanna, to a certain degree, because it's that kind of thing. It's going to require you to overcome that particular thing. It doesn't do much good. When you have restraint in that direction, it is shot out into the world at full force. But if you get angry and you go back and say, oh, well, I shouldn't have responded that way, or if you just think that everybody will overlook it, I don't really know what comes into their minds about that, but whatever it is, hindsight doesn't count at all like foresight, okay? It has a little bit, just a tiny little bit of effort in this about. In other words, humans can have foresight. All you're doing is teaching them to have hindsight when you have hindsight. So I'll take it back. Very few humans have foresight. They have a lot of hindsight. And when you're having hindsight, you're teaching them bad habits of having more hindsight. What you want to try to do is teach them to have more foresight. No matter what circumstance that you have to do.
In other words, you're programming yourself of the action you're going to take even before the incident occurs. And then when the instant shows its face, just the glimmer of its face, then you are applying those things that you've been programming. Do you see what we're saying? And I know it's later. We should have stopped long ago because this is the day you leave, and you should have consumed by now. But there's one other thing that disturbs me in the lists, and that is there's something wrong with your calling these things by what you're calling them. Because what you're, like irritation, for example, it isn't irritation. Irritation is a label that has been placed on that symptom. Okay? It isn't irritation. In other words, go a step deeper into the thing. Consider that, let's say that you've got glasses on, great big glasses on your face, reading glasses. And you've got a whole set of colors of lenses on those glasses that when a chemical imbalance or a malfunction in the mechanism triggered either by the world or from the heavens or internal chemistry, that when some malfunction or imbalance occurs, let's say that the moment that happens, that a pair of blue lenses fall down in front of your eyes. And do you think that you, at that moment, can discern color objectively and with good judgment? You don't even know that blue lenses have fallen into the frames of your glasses. Now, if you would think that every time there is some flaw, some less than perfect feeling or conduct, if you would think of it as a symptom of some imbalance, and that while that symptom is being triggered, your judgment is way off. That's just like how many times have we told you that when there's something wrong in you, that's always when you're finding something wrong with someone else, because at that moment you can't see them objectively. You're only responding to the symptom that is out of whack in you, even though this has to be a learned process. It doesn't. No sign comes into your brain and tells you, unless you put it there, that here's a response that you're pointing to them for that is really malfunction or chemical disorder in your own vehicle. You could say that for any symptom, anything that you have in your segments, anything that you have in your list, you could consider those labels for symptoms of malfunction or imbalance, triggered by you don't know what. Triggered by the world, triggered by the heavens, triggered by chemistry in your own vehicle, triggered by something you ate, triggered by, you don't know what it's triggered by. It's healthier right now at this stage of your classwork to think that those things are triggered by the world, and that you have a susceptibility to those things that the world is triggering because of the genetic history of your own vehicle. Now, do you all understand this? Let's go through it once again. Let's say that something in the heavens causes the world to be triggered in a certain weakness, and it hits you. The moment it hits you, it causes an imbalance in you. It causes a symptom. At that moment, those colored glasses change colors, and you cannot see anything objectively until that symptom is recognized and under control. When it's under control, then the color begins to fade and your lenses begin to become clear again, so that you can see again things more as they are. But at that point, when the color has faded and the fogginess has faded, then you don't feel that anymore. You have it so much under control, you're not fighting irritability or whatever that symptom might be. You just recognize that as the title that came with that chemical imbalance. And you have it under control. The moment you have it under control, you can see again. But you can't see again until you have it under control. Now, it might still be there, but you have it under control. You don't feel it. You have no feeling for it whatsoever. In other words, the signal may still be coming. But if I have recognized what the signal is that's coming, and I have done my homework on knowing what to do to control that signal so that it does not affect me or others, then that signal can keep right on coming. And I can let it not interfere with me at all. You all follow that? So it would be helpful if you realized that those labels that you're using are really not source. They are just labels of symptoms. And they have been put there because your vehicle has had symptoms that have been labeled that way. Or those characteristics have been labeled that way. But they're truly just symptoms of chemical imbalance and malfunction of the vehicle, triggered by another source.
So, is it accurate to say that all negativity is just, like you said, the symptoms that indicate that there's been some poorly developed or some underdeveloped or improperly developed aspect of your genetic programming?
Well,
because if your genes determine your body chemistry, and if the genes are out of whack, then the chemicals are out of whack.
Okay, but where's the end of that sentence again? Because I'm wondering, were you saying where the source came from, or you were saying that's the reason you're feeling the source?
Well, I was thinking that
I have a circuitry to that source because of my genetic history.
Right. Your genes are, if your genes are messed up, then you're more susceptible to the impact.
That's right. My genes have unhealed wounds or weaknesses in all the areas that make me susceptible to the circuitry of others who have those same weak characteristics. Do you follow that?
I think so. Because in my segment that I've been trying to get written, I was trying to show that what the real purpose of the humans is develop good genes. And that whenever you have negative responses of any kind, whether it's feeling irritability or poor health, physical health, it's because the genes are lacking in some way. Either they haven't been developed properly, or they've been improperly developed.
That's right.
But you also have to tell them how to do it.
Right.
In other words, what's the next step? First you have to become aware of the problem, and then you have to give them a solution on how to correct it.
Right.
In other words,
aware, like he says, aware of it and see it for what it is, instead of running yourself down because of what it is.
It's just like it could be a deficiency, which is genetic. Like these people who are on tranquilizers, there has to be a deficiency in their diet that causes them to be so nervous, that causes them to be having to have those tranquilizers.
Actually, everything's a deficiency.
But the thing of it is, you can also develop a habit from those deficiencies. You can even correct the deficiencies but still hang on to the habit. You see what I mean? Because you can respond. It's like a vehicular circumstance, a vehicular habit. You've seen these people who roll their eyes, when you say something, like, oh my gosh, And that's all that's not a deficiency there. That's the habit of the vehicle. It's a very unrefined habit. If you say something to me and I come back with a smart crack, that could be taken as sarcastic or trying to be funny, but yet it could be hurting. That's vehicular. That's not nutritional. You see the difference there? In other words, you have to really examine those things, because a lot of things are vehicular habits and not nutritional. And responding and irritability can also be the habit of the vehicle. It's just like, go sit down and be quiet, you know. Even though you might not feel anything, just saying it might give the other person the feeling that you are angry. But and those things have to be changed. The expression on your face, the way you say things, if they come across as something that can be taken as sarcastic, curtness, irritability, anything else that you can come up, if it comes across as a negative, then you have to change it.
You have to teach yourself
excuses for your vehicle acting that way.
Now, if it's simply a habit and no longer a chemical thing, then it's easy to change that habit if you want to correct your ways. You know, unless you still kind of like to be ugly.
Which we don't feel like anybody likes to have it in their crowd.
So,
excuse me.
well, I was just trying to get it clear. Like, this computer over here has a lot of little parts inside of it, like in the microchips, you know. If one of those chips has a structural defect in it, then it's going to, if it works at all, it's going to put out messed up signals so that the readout on the screen isn't right. So what you're saying is if that component has no structural damage, your genes have no structural damage, you can still program the computer to do crazy things.
It'll still put out those wrong signals because you've been in the habit of putting out the wrong signals so long. You can actually correct the problem. Trauma a lot of times will be the thing that humans will need in order to change the habit. Like we realize that a lot of times people will have had physical ailments that have long since disappeared, but they had the habit of being this kind of crippled or that, and but some traumatic experience causes them to be willing to change and do something that they didn't even know they could do. Because they didn't really try it. For some reason or other, either they liked the attention of being crippled, but some trauma that makes it an excusable event. Let's say that I had a disease that caused me to be crippled in my legs, and the disease left, and my legs became healthy. But I didn't want to accept that consciously, so I remained crippled in my legs. But eventually I got tired of being crippled in my legs, even though it was bringing me a lot of attention and things like that. And so I go to a faith healer. And the faith healer says, "You're healed." Here's a fantastic excuse for me to suddenly put my legs back into use, because I can blame him for doing it. I won't be seen as a fraud who was covering up my ailment. And the trauma. Well, it's unconscious because I want it to be unconscious. I don't want to let things like that surface into my conscious mind, so I keep them in my unconscious. But here's an opportunity for me to walk again in a right way. Or it may be even less obvious than that, and say that my child is about to fall off in the swimming pool. And I didn't think I could walk because I didn't want to walk. But here suddenly my desire more to reach that child is stronger than my subconscious desire to remain crippled. And the ailment has left me. And so I surprised myself and everybody else by walking up and grabbing the child and keeping it from falling in. And trauma a lot of times will change that signal, because the signal was false. It was a habit signal that you accepted for one reason or another. It was a false alarm.
There's no physical damage to the genes that cause it, but even though the genes are healthy, they still.
That's true. Now, believe it or not, Jesus used this technique, knowing that it would work, and knowing that people who would give him credit for their changes might listen to him more if they said he did this, he did that. And then pretty soon he said, "Look, I've done all these things, but you're still not doing. You praise me, but you don't do what I tell you to do." In other words, he was using the things that were the tools that he had available to him to try to get people to listen to him. Don't forget, they were a couple of thousand years more primitive than they are now, this civilization. He was talking to the same segment of society that you're talking to. Do you understand that?
So, a question that came in, and also that some have had previously, was this whole understanding of genes and stuff completely update the concept of booger? Could one of the things that brings a lens in, for instance, be the presence of a booger, or is that just, how does that still fit in?
Of your own booger? It's funny that you brought that up, because I'd say it does change it unless he disagrees with me. This doesn't mean that there isn't a living Satan. But as far as your own booger is like your own accumulated forces of weaknesses that would turn against you. And the advantage of thinking of it as a booger for a while is because you talk to your computer. You have taught your computer to talk. You know how humans are programming computers to talk? Well, the vehicle as a computer has been trained to talk. And the mind carries on a conversation with that vehicle. Now, the vehicle that doesn't particularly on its own care to shed itself of its weaknesses or even accept them as weaknesses will act as what we used to call the booger and constantly give you back talk for your efforts in changing its ways or improving it because it's been taught to talk. And it's slow to accept those things. But your booger doesn't talk as much anymore. And we have now broken the booger down into more analytical appraisal of the genetic structure. You see, even though you are still occupying a living creature that has been programmed to talk, and if you let it, it will talk back to you against your efforts, just as a booger would. All of its accumulated negativity will have a seeming mind of itself and talk against you.
Tell me if this is accurate, but I can see through what you just said, like what we used to think of as a booger bouncing between people, or if we're doing something here and going over there, it's just the genetic structure of one thing activating the exact same thing as someone else.
That's right. It's the circuitry connection. It's the circuitry
connection. It's like you're making a round connection that activates everything.
That's right. If I don't have a circuit on my board, in the circuit that you're plugged into, you can't affect me.
I'm not going to argue with you.
Or if I had slammed the door on my circuitry, I might have had a circuit there, but I've got a good control on the lock on the door of that circuit. You can let your circuit just go right crazy, and my circuit's not going to be touched. You try to plug into my circuit.
This circuit or certain vehicles are having to put on our list for it. It doesn't need to be on our list. These things come in vehicle, like, I want to die. And that's what comes in. It's like it comes from another place. I can see where it's coming from the world or something, but I don't know what to do.
Well, it's not that uncommon of a circuit.
Label it or what it's supposed to be working on back in the world.
It says it wants to die.
Yes.
Well, then that's
but I mean, the vehicle doesn't even feel like it's coming from the vehicle.
Well, it may be that you had opened certain areas of programming. You had been permissible to certain areas of programming where these kind of phrases wouldn't have been unheard of to creep in to those circuits. And therefore you may have on your radio dial, as far as your connection with your circuits with the world, you may still have some area there where those thoughts could still get into your circuitry. But all you're concerned with is to simply recognize them for what they are and how foolish they are.
You don't have
and
to
that they have no place for you to pay attention to.
You don't have to pay, like Buzz just said, you don't have to pay attention to everything that comes into your mind or into your brain.
No, a lot of things are... Yes.
Like, I want to die. That's ridiculous. You know, why even pay any attention to something like that? In other words, let it come, just pass through and go out. Because it's definitely not your mind that wants to die. And your mind isn't going to let it be. You just you don't want to put too much stock in what comes into the brain. In other words,
unless it has created a serious problem for you.
It poses a problem.
Yeah, but a lot of little things can just come in and you can flit them out as fast as they came in and forget about them.
Now, there are a lot of suicides happening out there. And if you have that continually coming in, then that might be part of your task.
And it might be somehow or other.
Want to die.
That's right, and those tendencies might be in your genetic structure.
It may be part of the task.
I guess that's what it is, because I usually just, if it doesn't, it just fits by and without thinking about it, I didn't know if I should be sending out something back.
Well, just say...
But you're sending it back, you're sending the right thing back automatically when you reject it. You're automatically sending back a program. You don't have to verbally say the thing that's going through your mind at the moment that you abort something like this. If you habitually abort those negatives, that picture that occurred at the moment you aborted goes right back to those others who would benefit by it.
In other words, if it comes in often, then it might be part of your task, because there are a lot of suicides going on out there, and it may be part of your task. We better call it quits, because this is really special.
Okay. I've been trying to separate out the programming that I would say to a weakness of the vehicle that gets triggered, or something I would do, like the vehicle seems to have a lot of trouble with discouragement, shame, and guilt. And I've been listening to things you said about this in the last few tapes. And, is it appropriate to say programming? Is there any appropriate programming to say to the mind, like you can control the vehicle or you can stay positive? I mean, it seems like the mind already is that
You're getting too complex. If you have a feeling of guilt, abort that. I have no reason to feel guilty. Oh, yes, you do. You have it. I'm not going to listen to you. No, but don't listen to it any more than you would listen to anything else. You have no justification for listening to guilt or shame or discouragement than you do anything else. Those are merely, they are on your list. In other words, they aren't just side effects for other things that you aren't doing. They are symptoms themselves. So anytime a feeling of guilt or shame comes in, you've got to abort it just as quickly as you would. None of you have any excuse or reason for. You couldn't have done anything that would give you reason for it. I don't care what you did. It's not reason for entertaining guilt or shame. Whatever you did is reason for getting rid of what you did, but not an excuse for entertaining guilt or shame. Do you understand that? Now, you've got to learn that, because humans are programmed to think if I did something wrong, then I automatically must entertain shame or guilt.
A man who beat his professor to death with a hammer was released, and they are on parole, and they think it's horrible because he says he doesn't feel badly about it. He'll do it again.
He said, I'm not going to promise that I won't do it again. What he actually said was, I don't know whether I would do it again. He said, I don't feel like I know myself well enough, is what it amounted to say to you that I could promise I wouldn't do it again. He hopes he wouldn't do such a thing again, but they picked him up, by the way. It wasn't out 2 hours.
He did it deliberately, but the thing, he doesn't want it, I don't think. But the thing of it is, humans are programmed to feel guilty. You've got to stop it. And if you have that on your task,
you've been programmed to feel that guilt and shame and discouragement follows everything you do that's wrong, so that you get a double barrel instead of a single barrel. In other words, when you do something wrong, that single barrel is all you need. You work against that thing you did wrong. But when you do something wrong, to automatically get back with it, guilt or shame or embarrassment is self-destructive in itself.
If we ever said to you, you ought to be ashamed of yourself, you even feel guilty and all that. In other words, you're doing wrong by accepting it. Throw it back. Just like what Glenn Odie was saying about I want to die. I don't want to die. You don't want to die. And when that guilt comes in, You don't have any reason to feel guilty.
That's the old-fashioned morality programming that says I've got to accompany anything that I do that's less than my highest standard. I've got to accompany it with suffering labeled guilt and shame and embarrassment. Believe it or not, those things do not help you correct your problem. They merely add weight to the problem and make it more difficult.
I'll tell you what would make you feel guilty. After knowing what you know and you walk out the door and you leave this tax to us to do. That would make you feel guilty.
Amen. Get out of there if they need to. It's just as hard to be strong and go in the right direction in a country with the freedom this one is, because you're influenced by all the things that come out over the so-called free press and the televisions and the movies and the newspapers, and to make you go to a movie, and many of the movies would lead you to believe that cocaine is in for everybody. And don't forget, there's still a naive world there that anything that they see others doing and it looks chic to them or socially ahead of where they are, and they feel that they should do it too. So the hazards are just as great toward self-destruction in this society. It's a society that we can see why the next level sent us into it, because it permits us to do our task with less interference than we could probably do it anywhere else. But that doesn't mean that the system is good. It's still a very primitive system. We realized that we didn't see the program, but we knew that the program was on, and we had kept up with the information, and we know that they wouldn't even be coming into this if you weren't here, and if we weren't talking about genes. And we feel good that they're picking up on it. Now, the next thing you got to help them pick up on, which is still very elementary information, is that even if they arranged the genes and corrected the genes and created a perfect so-called theoretical individual, he's not going to last. anytime at all, unless you teach him how to act and what to consume. And in other words, the way he lives, it will destroy that as fast as it happens. He can't survive if what he eats and the way he acts and the world around him treats him is all going to affect him and cause him still to self-destruct. But it is a step in the right direction to realize, and there's nothing, we feel like it's good. There's nothing wrong with genetic engineering. Now, it could get out of hand, and they could make mistakes, but the next level is using them in ways to slowly bring them up.
And it is possible that the standard of the individual that they create, so to speak, could improve the standard of the world. In other words, they would be in more position to receive a higher understanding. In other words, if they can correct the flaw in the vehicle, which there are definite flaws in the vehicle, and but then again, they don't know which ones to correct to overcome what Doug just talked about. In other words, if you think you have a good mind, like you want to create Superman, well, what good is our mind will not function properly if it isn't treated properly? And how many high IQ people are in the penitentiary right now? Now, what caused them to go bad? It had to be the environment, it had to be nutrition, something suppressed them to a degree that prevented them from going ahead. It could have been the establishment, as they say, because they want to go against it, but something had to cause them to want to go against the establishment. So it's just the beginning to change all these genetics.
It's good.
And it's good. But
and it's very elementary, even though to them it's extremely advanced.
They compared it, what if they compared this new stage with the beginning, like the discovery spiral, and more of a change that was there. And I thought it was kind of interesting. They gave a little background on what begins with. They determine the color of your eyes, the shape of your face, your height, everything. And I felt like they just might have picked that up from us and didn't even know what it meant.
Everything started out with ways to isolate the growth hormone. And when the kids weren't growing, they had the experiment going. They were using all the technology, some of the technology, they had experiments going. 37 kids, 37 kids, and they're getting them the hormone over years and they're starting to grow. They're to isolate more of these genes that this kind of thing to see. One of the best areas the next level can work through is this kind of science and medicine. But funny, the paradox and primitive even they are, those same scientists and doctors and researchers all go self-destruct their own vehicles and the things that they consume and the